Hello, everybody. Let's talk about the 9 signs that you need a memory expert. This is something that comes up again and again and again as people continue to search for help from memory experts who have some level of expertise in how to use memory techniques and how to learn faster, etc. And the problem is, though, is that people go to them and then they don't get the help that they need, and then they go to the next one and then the next one and the next one, and they say, hey, can you help me find the person who's going to finally help me, etc., etc. And there may be a situation where they don't actually need a memory expert, or they need to understand more about the kind of memory expert that they need. And there are some signs and considerations that we'll go through today to help you figure out where you might be in the mix. If you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how your week has been, what's exciting you, etc. in the chat. These sessions are always more fun when we have some back and forth. But if not, I got lots to say, and we will have fun. If you're joining the replay, hit the thumbs up. Get subscribed to this channel if you're not already subscribed, and rock and roll. So to start off with here, one of the things that people are looking for when they are looking for memory training is mastery. Mastery over their memory, mastery over their ability to learn. And one of the ways that you can think about mastery is that you're going to become a skilled practitioner of a craft so that it serves you precisely when you need it, without exception, right? And to get that, you got to spend, as we see here, a small part of your life like most people never will, so you can spend the rest of your life like most people never can, and they won't be able to because they don't make that investment in themselves. So you need to become the memory expert, right? You need to actually invest in yourself to the extent that you put in the study, you put in the implementation, and then you practice those skills with information that actually lets you accomplish something else, because just memorizing stuff is not an accomplishment in and of itself. It's what you then do with that information that matters. And the more that you do that, you'll find that you are living the life that most people can't, because they won't put in that investment. So this is where I want to start, and I want to start at this level, because that ultimately is how people get mastery over life, right? As an art, is they invest in themselves and they become the expert that they're seeking, right? So SDFG is in the house, says greetings, was just scoping out my MMM for this week. Well, here it is, my friend. Thank you for being here. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And let's start with the first sign that you need the help of a memory expert. And it is that you keep saying, oh, but my brain is different. My brain don't work that way. Oh, I have some special, unique brain that is different than all the other brains out there, and this just won't work for me because this, that reason, blah, 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 the evil Dr. Forget has my soul. All that stuff. I hear this day in and day out. This would never work for me. Oh, I'm skeptical, etc., etc. And I don't mean to mock anybody by being a bit humorous here. Maybe if I'm being humorous, I don't know, and I can't hear anybody laughing. But I'm laughing. So the thing is that I hear it again and again and again and again, endless reasons why that it won't work for people. And you need help in that situation, because your brain is not different. It can't be different. And the more that we learn about how memory works, how the brain works, etc., it's the fact of similarities between the brains that even make our conversation right now possible. So if you keep thinking that you're somehow different or special, or there must be something wrong with your brain, or you need some unique special backdoor, etc., etc., you need the help of a memory expert, because you're deluding yourself. Your brain is not different than other brains, although it is. So both things can be true. It can be totally unique and completely the same at the same time, and it needs to be. Tony Buzan, never forget, sitting across the table from me at dinner, the rules will set you free. Why? Because the rules that make memorizing anything, remembering anything possible, are only possible because your brain works the same as everybody else's does. And as you may have noticed and followed along in the journey so far, there's been a lot of discussions of aphantasia and so forth. And some people have said to me, even this morning I got an email, it's amazing that this condition has gone unnoticed for so long. Well, no, it hasn't. It hasn't gone unnoticed. Someone just gave a name to something that I personally noticed for a long time called image deficit disorder, or, low visual threshold, I always used to say, etc. This isn't new. Just some people came along and they said, hey, we got to give this a science name, etc., because some brains out there are different. Well, no, they're not. They're the same brains. And some of the research around it shows that the same visual centers are firing up, whether you have this condition or not. So the question is not so much, is your brain different? It's, is your willingness to take action different? And can we get you more willing to take action, even if you've got stories in your head that are saying that it's different to the point that you are chained in analysis paralysis, that you are chained in denial, that you are chained in skepticism, etc., etc., etc. I don't know which memory expert will be perfect for you. I got some suggestions, but at the end of the day, if you keep telling yourself that your brain is different, you need help, because you can succeed. You can learn faster. You can remember more. You've just got to find the right person who can help you knock you out of those chains if you've got them, because chances are, except for maybe some sort of congenital issue or car accidents, etc., your brain probably isn't different, probably is far from different. And even in the case of car accidents, Michael Gussman was on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, and he had brain trauma. And what did they do in order to help get his brain back to being the same as everybody else's? They used what's called passive memory training. And then when he was up and running again, he went to active memory training, which is using memory techniques. And then he started memorizing the Bible, and the next thing you know, he's feeling great, sharp again. What does that mean? It means he just restored his brain to the status quo. So that's the first sign that I got for you. I think it's one that we all have in our lives at some level. We go, oh, but things are different for me, it's and this little violin starts playing that sad little song just for you, etc. But you got to get over yourself and you just realize that the same rules that govern the memory that goes through everybody's head also govern yours. And if you can surrender yourself to the rules that govern memory techniques and practice them and surrender yourself to the practicing of the practice, you will get where you want to go. And you just need to get encouraged to do it. Make sure you have the right connections firing in your head, because some people do understand things differently and they need different motivations and so forth. You can get there. I know you can. And I've seen it again and again and again. Sometimes it's just the slightest shift in perspective that makes it go. And memory experts can help you. So STFG did indeed laugh. Ha ha ha, he types. Great, great, great. David Petrosis is in the house. Good to see you, David. He says, I have learned around 700 Arabic words in the last 3 months using your guidance. I needed a piece of paper to go to the store for 6 items prior to this training. Works, and I am continually amazed. Excellent, David. I won't hurt anybody's eardrums by clapping, but wonderful, wonderful. 700 Arabic words around about. Beautiful. That's beautiful. And in 3 months. So this is absolutely fantastic. You have my respect. And how does it happen? Part of it has to be that you stop thinking any thoughts that your brain is different and just rely on the rules that govern the brain and how these techniques work. So what are those rules that govern the brain? Very simple. The primacy effect, the recency effect, serial positioning effect, and von Restorff effect, etc., etc. There's all kinds of words. Oh, levels of processing effect. And those terms, you don't even have to know them in order to get these techniques into work. I like to share them from time to time when people are interested. People tell me they're interested in more memory science, but then they don't watch the memory science videos I put out there, strangely enough, or very few do. But anyway, there's an iconic memory video out for you last week. If you haven't checked it out, please do if you're interested, because when people talk about photographic memory, they are usually unaware of iconic memory. And if you would just actually focus on the kinds of memory that do exist and then use those kinds of memories to those styles of types, scientifically verifiable, testable, and measurable, and deniable in some senses, levels of memory, then you get more out of your practice than fantasies about photographic memory. So check out that video on iconic memory if you missed it. And by the way, there's a bunch of resources down in the link world of the discussion area below this video or beside it or however it shows up on your device on YouTube. And you can follow up with a number of different memory experts that I would suggest you follow up with. But at the end of the day, those are the rules, and the Memory Palace enables us to rapidly put all of those rules into effect because of how that it works. It's all 100% scientific. You can make pretty good predictions of how it's going to work. So when David says 700 Arabic words, that is totally predictable depending on how much time and organization he put into getting them gathered together, using them in the memory palaces, etc., just simply because of how primacy, recency, serial positioning effect can work together along with levels of processing effect to get it into long-term memory quickly and fun, in a way that's fun, easy. Austin is in the house, says, thanks for releasing this information. I've been learning the Memory Palace and been using it for biology. It's amazing. Wonderful, Austin. Thank you for saying so. Thank you for being here. You say Dankeschön. Well, gern geschehen. Thank you. Absolutely love opportunities to speak a little bit of German. Wonderful, wonderful. Where are you in the German-speaking world? Abraham is here. Welcome, Abraham. Good to see you. Thanks for saying hello. You say you are in electrical engineering. Been trying memory techniques. I find it extremely difficult in the world of equations, in the world of concepts. Abraham, thanks for that. Here's the thing. A lot of people, they make the same mistake as my brain is different with something else. But my information is different. Equations, concepts, etc., it's not different. When you have the tools, you're able to pick into it the same way as the name of a guy named Bob or Bill. But you need the tools. Those tools are the Memory Palace and then the tools of association. Magnetic celebrity lists, magnetic PAO 00 to 99, etc. If you have all of that ready to go, the information's the same. There's no special information out there. So you need an expert if you're saying, but my brain is different, and if you're saying, but my information is different. There's no such thing as conceptual information in terms of what we're going to do with memory techniques. And that's because all information that you need is either symbolized by alphabets or by numerical codes or by symbols. And if there are other things, such as graphs and charts and so forth, they are manipulable, they are codable by other means, and it all comes down to a relative sameness. So it's very, very important to not look at information and somehow put it on some scale of complexity, that this is more complex than that. That is adding a layer of illusion that is not helpful to people. Take it into the world of language learning. People say, well, this language takes oodles of hours more than this language, and this language is many magnitudes of order more complicated than this language. Well, it's going to be if you put that filter on top of it and start to tell yourself a story all about how complicated it is, instead of doing something different, which is to say, well, I got to learn this. I'm going to organize this information using the principles of predetermination and preparation, and those are in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass if you want to learn them. And when you have those in place, and you have your memory palaces in place, your brain doesn't care about what the information is. The memory techniques doesn't care. You take an ocean or a bucket, the ocean doesn't care. You can just pour as much of that ocean into your bucket as you want, except for when you start telling yourself a little story about, well, I struggle because this is engineering information, or this is abstract concepts. No, it isn't. It's just information. The tools are just a bucket, and the ocean doesn't care. You care. Little story cares. Ooh, so this is the same problem. My brain is different. If you keep telling yourself that story, you need a memory expert to, whatever. I might not be the right guy. There are people who are perhaps a little more patient with stories that people tell themselves than I am. But the illusion is real, and all the threats of the illusions that students throw up between themselves and information is real. And you need somebody who can help you break through it, because your brain is not different. The information is not any more or less difficult than the story you tell yourself to make it so. Very, very important to understand. Now, that doesn't mean that some things are not more dense, not more detailed, or require more integrity of your analysis and your time. But you don't have to tell your story about that to make it more complicated than it is. Because if you are a warrior and you're fighting a battle and so forth, it serves you in absolutely negative terms to start telling yourself a story about how the enemy is bigger, the enemy is faster, the enemy has better weaponry, and so forth. We all know that David can strike down Goliath if he has his mind together properly and just uses what he has on hand and relies upon his training with those tools. In that situation, Goliath doesn't stand a chance, and neither does the most abstract information in the world. So check your head. Your brain is not different, but your attitude might be. So check your attitude. All right. Abraham says, thank you very much for boosting my confidence. I definitely needed to take a class with you. Well, please do. Please do. You can get started over at magneticmemorymethod.com, and I look forward to that. Maricela is in the house. She says hello to the masterclass members and the guests. She's reviewing poetry in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. Indeed, indeed. So Maricela was posting in our mastermind group recently about some of her questions. And I said, well, you got to complete the poetry course next, please. It will help you to deal with that information. All right. So if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, what's exciting you lately. Very excited. Again, congratulations to David with his 700 Arabic words as he posted in the chat there. Wonderful and amazing in every way. Reason number 2, you might need a memory expert. You feel completely scattered. So that's normal. It's going to happen. Sometimes I feel scattered too. And sometimes I feel scattered in a positive way, actually. And I remember feeling scattered in ways that actually would have been positive if I hadn't told myself a bunch of stories about it. And then there are sometimes ways that being scattered is negative, and you might need someone to help you figure out how to deal with those situations. And so a memory expert can help, because what are memory experts really? And I'm thinking here of, people who are memory experts in mnemonics, in accelerated learning. They are people who know how to organize their minds because they have the mental tools of organization used to rapidly encode information. And there may be different strategies that they use. They may emphasize some of the techniques a little bit more than others. But at the end of the day, at their core, they are the ultimate tool for dealing with a scattered mind because they organize your mind. They help reduce the number of decisions that you have to make. And they help you have decision parameters that guide the decisions when you do have to make them. Very, very important. They give you clarity. They give you focus. They give you a path to follow, even if it's not always the right path. At least it's a path in the general right direction. And then if you need to pivot, you're pivoting in the right direction. Or if you have to go back, you're at least able to track where the heck that it was that you went, because you'll remember it because you're basing it on tools and techniques and strategies that are inherently organizational in nature. Very, very important. So if you feel completely scattered all the time, you need help from somebody who is an expert in mental organization. That's what memory experts are, if they're worth their salt. They are able to give you the tools of mental organization. Now, you may be very, very rusty. You may be completely unaccustomed to thinking in the ways that people who use memory techniques use them. But if you're willing to get started, you'll start to see the benefits and experience the benefits of mental organization very, very quickly. And then those stories that people tell themselves about how, oh, my information is different, it's more complicated, won't matter, because you'll see the structure. You'll see how it relates to just informationness as such. And you'll have tools for dealing with it. Very, very important and powerful to be able to see information in that way, to be systematic, and to perceive the systematicity in all things that have systems, which, systems is just a word, right? Nature doesn't have any systems. Nature is nature. But we apply the concept of a system to things in order to help us better interact and engage with them. Tony Buzan was a great systems thinker, and he came up with mind mapping as a means of harnessing what we call systems in nature and putting them on the page. So, for example, in the systematicity of mind mapping, how you can move yourself from being scattered to structured is very, very simple. And one of the things that he talked about was using the mind map as a sort of a mirror of what a brain cell is like, with a central nucleus and then tributaries that move outward to feed and nourish other parts of the cell. So it's like a mind map is a brain cell, and it has a nucleus and, mitochondria and all this stuff that's inside of cells, and it reinforces itself by having structure. Now, that structure may be alinear. It may, to the mind's eye, not appear as structured as bookshelves in a library and so forth, but that doesn't matter. This allows you to rapidly find structures by being systematic and structural, right? And so in work that I've done to enhance mind mapping in the ways that I enjoy, I've imposed another system on top of that general thinking, which is basically a memory mind map, which is what this is. So stay tuned for a video that's going to talk about what that is, how that works, and it's a way of getting out of feeling scattered and then feeling structured, because through movement, through action, through application, you can't help but feel structured because you're actually doing structure. It's beautiful. Memory Palace is the same thing. Memory Palace is the same thing. It is perceiving how things work in nature, and instead of feeling scattered, actually fusing, assembling with what happens in the world, in the natural world, and then using what happens in your brain and giving it more structure. So if you feel completely scattered, you need a memory expert to help you out. All right. Austin says, I'm in Montana, currently going for a degree in computer science, although I've been learning Deutsch during my free time since I want to move to Europe. Wunderschön, wunderbar. All right, so great. You will love being in Europa. Have fun over there. Aditya is in the house. Which one should I master, the major system or the dominant system? Aditya, thank you for asking me that question. Please go to magneticmarymethod.com/Dominic-system. Go through that material thoroughly. There's a video there, podcast, examples. There's another video about the major and a 00 to 99 PAO, and let your dedicated study of both of them help you decide. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you do need to be the decider, but let us know what it is that you want to do with numbers. That might help, and follow up with those resources because they're very good. Thanks for that, Aditya. And if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and let's carry on with the next sign that you need a memory expert. You don't understand the techniques. No matter what you do, you can't figure out what the heck these people are talking about. Memory Palace, Dominic, Major, PAO, what? If you want to rapidly accelerate your progress, you could just go straight to a person who can have a chat with you and walk you through it, and then give you some guidance based on your goals, help you have some goals if they're a good memory expert, and speed up the progress for you by giving you a bit more direction. And there's no shame in it, because there is a lot of terminology. People use different terminology. They will have some kind of experience with it that's different than other people. They will have found this from that, and I've talked to so many people on the podcast. There's still so many episodes that have never been released. Maybe some of them never will be released, etc. And it can be confusing. It can be confusing. I'm reading Bruno now, the 30 Seals, in part of my Giordano Bruno research project, and he uses terminology, and I have to think, okay, is that just, what is that? How does that map onto this, that, and the other thing? Does it? Can I make an educated guess or what, right? And we don't get to call up Bruno on the phone, but you can find people who are very good with these techniques and talk to them. So instead of sitting around and beating yourself up that you don't understand the techniques, get somebody to help you. There's lots of people willing to help, and you're worth it. You're worth the investment. And there's no need to go around not understanding the techniques. Now, here's the problem, though. Here's the problem with this, is that some people just want to understand the techniques. They just want to understand what the heck these memory people are doing in their heads, and they don't actually want to use them. So, check yourself. Make sure that you're not just chasing after some amusement. Be all in. Actually want to use these things. So there's a very famous case. Frances Yates wrote The Art of Memory. She wrote wonderfully about the art of memory, but she never actually used the techniques. And anybody who uses the techniques reads this book and is just like, yeah, but this could have been so much better if she'd actually used the techniques. So Lynn Kelly's Memory Craft is kind of, in my mind, like what Art of Memory should have been. And I use should very lightly, very loosely, in a fun way. Art of Memory is great. It's a great, great book. But it's shocking at the same time. That almost as if she's proud of it, Frances Yates says, I never actually used the techniques. What? You spent all that time researching the memory tradition, and you didn't even make a memory palace and memorize some stuff? Insane. It would have been a very different book had she done so. All right. David says, analysis paralysis. Yes, it's a huge problem. And it's not just a memory problem. It's a human problem. Happens all over the board. And you know what? The problem with analysis paralysis is that some things do require analysis. There's no two ways about it. But often the analysis is done after or during the doing, right? The real analysis. So we call it analysis paralysis, but sometimes what we really mean is humming and hawing, right? It's that toe testing the water and not just jumping in, right? As if somehow, if you just stir your toe around in that cold water for long enough, the rest of the pool is going to warm up and you won't have a shock as you go into the dive, It's not going to happen. Toes don't make the pool warmer. Your body gets warmer, or your body acclimatizes to being in the pool. All right, Abraham says, I've been at memory techniques for 2 months. I'm hoping on becoming faster at it. How long do you think it would take for memory techniques to become second nature if I were to take classes with you? Abraham, great question. Thank you for that. I have seen people go from 0 to 1,000 words in 6 weeks in a language. And 1,000 words means that they're now equipped to memorize anything under the sun, right? I've seen them do 200 words in 10 days when they're doing language learning. I've seen people do 96 Thai words really inside of a fortnight. And that's in those contexts. I've seen other people spend a year analyzing this. You can listen to the Magnetic Memory Method podcast to listen to Kevin Richardson talk about this. He didn't, quote unquote, get the techniques, and he just let them go for a year. Then he came back to it. And then the next thing you know, he's memorizing 30 kanji a day while studying Japanese, and he's totally in love with it. So some people take time to percolate, but you don't need to. And that's why you sometimes just want to get on the call with a memory expert who can help accelerate your practice. Or otherwise, there's other ways to benefit from memory experts, but nobody can actually predict this, Abraham. I wish that there was a magic number. The answer is it's up to you. So, we have David here earlier in the chat stream saying that he learned 700 Arabic words in the last 3 months. You would have a different time scale because you're doing something different. And in some ways, you have an advantage because I would argue, without a sight unseen, I would argue that what you're doing is probably easier than memorizing foreign language vocabulary and phrases like the examples that I've given. And that there are medical student examples, etc. There's a couple of those on the Magnetic Memory Method testimonials page. If memory serves, I've got a link to the testimonials page down in the description of this video, so you can go read all kinds of success stories, and none of them have the same number of time that it takes. It's up to you at the end of the day. And think of it this way. It's not about how long it takes. It's about how good you want to be. And it's that principle that we opened up with, is that mastery, I don't know if you caught it at the beginning, but mastery is doing what other people won't so that you can live the life that other people can't. So I would, when we get back to analysis paralysis, and then David's last comment here, just do it. Just do it, be all in, and be in it for life. Because we're talking about more than just memory training. We're talking about mental fitness, mental literacy, as Tony Buzan called it. And we want that for life. And that means that we're going to train for life. So again, mastery is doing what other people won't so that you can live the life that other people can't, because they won't do it. All right. Thank you for those questions. Thank you for joining us. If you're just getting here, hit that thumbs up. Let me know in the chat where you're at, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how things are going, what's exciting for you lately. The next sign that you might need a memory expert is that you do understand the techniques, but you can't get them to quote unquote work. Now, I worded it that way, but the thing is that memory techniques don't work. You work the techniques. So I hear often people say, well, I understand this. I hope it works. You don't need hope. They don't, they're just, it's just knowledge, right? It's knowledge of what to do and how to do it, etc. But what you need to do is actually work the techniques. And if you work the techniques, then something's going to happen. But it's not about them working for anybody, and you don't have to hope that they will work. It is very, very hard for the dedicated practitioner of these techniques to fail with them due to the nature of the tradition, how that the tradition functions through application. It's very, very difficult. That's why so many skeptics do so well. It's because they use the energy of their skepticism. They can't believe that this is possible. And then because they're devoted to proving this whole world wrong, they provide focus and energy, and they put them to work with rigor and intensity that makes it impossible for them not to work. So keep that in mind. But you still might not know what to do, and so getting some more help from a memory expert can help make sure that you're not missing some of the steps, because some people do miss some of the steps. And as tragic as that is, it's not that tragic, because there are solutions when you get help from experts who know what they're doing and walk their talk. All right, David Jones is here from Tennessee. Great to see you, David. Thanks for being here. Thanks for saying hello. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I hope to see Tennessee one of these days. Beautiful in my mind. All right, so the next issue and the next sign that you might need a memory expert is that your memory is, you're getting it, you're doing it, but your magnetic imagery isn't striking enough. You're not using all of the magnetic modes. You're not somehow, able to do it within seconds. All of these procedures that make the images striking for you, and in a way that enables you to get that recall, so that all the functioning is working in recall rehearsal, etc., etc. That's very common, and it usually happens because there's just something that was missed in the description, or glossed over somehow, or not properly understood, etc., etc. But by sharing what's going on and describing in detail what it is that you're doing, a memory expert can see what you're not doing and help you laser target what to do instead, give you some exercises, etc. Now, one of the problems here, and it catches a lot of people, is that we use the word imagery. We use pictures in your mind, etc. That's not really, in my experience so far, what this is about. It's just a quirk of English in particular, because other languages don't necessarily call them they don't call them pictures. So in German, for example, you might come across Eselsbrücke, which essentially means a donkey bridge, and that's very interesting, very telling, right? And you can really help yourself by not getting caught up in the idea that images are images on their own, because that can lead you to issues. And this is part of that aphantasia or aphantasia discussion that's ongoing. And we know that there's no need to see pictures in your mind and still do very, very well with the techniques. All right, so that's that. And if you get it, if you understand the principles, etc., but somehow the imagery isn't working, then you can get some help from an expert who can show you how to do it better. Now, the next sign is that you understand the techniques, but you can't get yourself to put in the work, to put in the effort. You're just, too comfortable sleeping in bed, etc., and somehow nothing's going to happen if you don't make a change. And getting involved in the help that a memory expert can provide can really, really help make sure that you don't get caught up in perpetual laziness and never achieve your goals, because that would be tremendously sad. And you can knock yourself out of it. And one of the things that we know is that people who pay attention. So perfect timing. Adolfo is here. Hello, Adolfo. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really, really appreciate that. I don't know why that what you said didn't appear on the screen, but let me get it up there. Just put in from Adolfo. Really appreciate your support as always, and absolutely incredible. I wonder why it won't let me press enter here. I'm going to have to do it in 2 parts, I guess, because it's got a character limit all of a sudden. It didn't have a character limit before. They keep changing the internet. Oh, well, we'll deal with it. Anyway, there's no need to be held back. There's no need whatsoever to be held back. And getting help from a memory expert can prompt you, even just from the effect of investing in yourself, because you want a return on your investment, right? So you're going to prompt yourself. That doesn't, not for all people, but for many people. So Adolfo says, hello, Magnetic Memory Method Familia, and Anthony the Mechanic Metivier. Thank you for all you do for the memory community. The MMM has helped me jump back to university after 18 years while reducing learning anxiety. I love the MMM. Well, thank you, Adolfo, and thank you so much for the super chat and all your support over the years, really, and for sharing so much of your journey with what you're doing. That's just absolutely incredible. And for those of you in our mastermind, there's some new videos up in the mastermind with Adolfo and Peter helping each other in ways that will help you with developing your lists and organizing your strategy, so that the principles of preparation and predetermination work for you, so that you get the most out of it. And this is a community, and it's a wonderful one that keeps growing, and we absolutely love having some serious players in the Memory Palace. So thank you so much again, Adolfo. I really appreciate it. And I know everybody else does too, because it's the interest in this particular approach to teaching the memory techniques that makes this possible. And I hope that it continues going forever and ever. Amen. The magnetic memory method being sort of like the Batman suit that maybe someday in the future will be worn by another actor. We shall see. We'll get to that point in a minute. All right. So if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And don't let laziness or lethargy or analysis paralysis or whatever hold you back. You're worth it. You're the asset. You're the champion horse. So many people, they treat their dogs better than they treat themselves. And when you've got goals and you want to get something done, invest in yourself. Get help. People can change. They can get beyond the barriers and then enjoy a much better life as a result. And it's just strange the amount that people will pay for things other than themselves. Now, who am I? I don't know. Maybe they are getting more out of themselves by giving their dogs gourmet food instead of giving themselves a proper diet. But you get the point, right? So invest in yourself. You are worth it. The next sign that you need a memory expert is that you're just sick of feeling lost. And, you know, there's people who just don't know that you can actually reach out to some of these people who do memory training, and they can give you some guidance. They can literally help you craft a map personally if you wanted it, or in some of the other ways that we'll discuss. And you don't have to be lost. Part of the wonderful benefit of having a community around you when you're invested in that community is that you're never lost, because you have these other people who are into the granular details of these techniques, and you can chat amongst them and know that they're serious practitioners because they're also invested. Now, there's random forums where, you know, people have oodles of different goals that they want, etc. And then there's more private sorts of communities, and, you know, try them both. See what works. But if you're sick of feeling lost, you don't have to feel lost. You don't have to feel alone, because there are people who are so into this stuff. In Ultra Learning, Scott Young talks about this, how that, you know, people who are into memory techniques, they're really into them. And it's just sort of a wonderful moment in Ultra Learning. And by the way, I'm not sure yet when I'm going to do it, but I have 2 copies of Ultra Learning, and I will be doing a giveaway of the Ultra Learning copies that I have. So stay tuned for that. If you're on my email list, that will go out, and I'm really looking forward to more people being able to read Ultra Learning, because it's a great book. And there's an interview with Scott Young all about that book on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast if you're interested. All right, if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. The next sign you need a memory expert is that you're determined to be the best that you can be, or you're determined to have your company be the best company that it can be, or you're determined to have your students be the best students that they can be. And you want to lead yourself and essentially be the best that you can be. Now, the best is not meant to create a game of comparison. It's not meant to make you feel more than other people or less than other people. You are in competition with one person, and that's you. And even then, you don't have to think of it as a competition. But there is optimal well-being, there is optimal functioning, and then there's the maintenance of it. So once you reach a great state, you're feeling very confident with your memory, and you're having fun, then there's the maintenance of that and setting new goals to help push the limits and grow over time. And so one of the things that really the best do is they make sure that they're always around people, or they have access to people who are ahead of them, in order to give them insights through observation about what they can do better. And they invest in themselves to make that happen. And that's true in many, many fields. But if you're determined to be the best that you can be, the way that you get there is by making sure that you're part of the community. You're part of the conversation. You're part of the development of the tradition. And so this is why I've shown up at memory competitions. This is why I went to learn from Tony Buzan. It's why that I have so many people on the podcast to help me have as much insight as possible. And of course, many of those conversations are available for you to listen to, but it may be more than enough, but for many people, it won't be exactly enough, because you don't know what you don't know. And so if you're really determined to be the best that you can be, there are people you can get on calls with. You can go to John Graham, for example. And if you're not on John Graham's email list, you should be, because he's amazing. So that's something that you're missing out on. And as far as I know, he does do coaching, and you can get on the horn with him. He's 2018 USA memory champion and the coach, just doing great stuff for people. So invest in yourself if you want that. But again, it's not just about you. You might want it for your company, you might want it for your students, etc. And that's very, very important to consider, because if you're a manager in a company, for example, and you're doing sales or whatever, and your salespeople are, not even able to memorize the names of the people that they're having meetings with, or they can't remember product details, or they can't remember prices, etc., etc., they're not going to be the best possible salespeople. You need to have that sort of stuff in memory in order to perform. So that's where you can get a ton of help from different memory experts who can help you, craft a plan to train an entire team, which is really a great investment. Probably one of the best investments a business could make in the performance of their staff. All right. So the next reason is that you might want to coach or teach. And this is something that, as a little tip in the future, so many people ask me about teaching memory that I'm putting together a training about teaching and coaching memory. But I myself wanted to learn to teach memory better, so I went and learned from the best, Tony Buzan, right? And learned so much, because you just simply do not know what you don't know. And it was one of the best things that I ever did, was to go and learn directly from someone who created the premier memory training, really. But he wasn't the only one. In the early days, I learned about this from Harry Lorraine. Get on a call. What do I need to know? He gave me the worst of advice and the best of advice, all in the same sentence, and it was priceless. Other people I've learned from, just there's so many conversations that you don't get to hear on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast because they happen before or after. But if you want to coach or teach, go to the people who are not only experts in actually using the techniques and have accomplished certain things with them, but actually know how to teach them. And carpe diem and caveat emptor, but definitely emphasis on the caveat emptor, because there's lots of people who'd be happy to teach you how to teach that don't actually go and don't do much teaching. So be careful out there. And like I said, I'm working on a program that will help people in this area, because I get asked all the time. And the reality is, at the end of the day, you need to actually use the techniques yourself to be able to teach them. But there's a paradox, which is that in order to be able to use the techniques as well as possible, you need to be able to teach them, because you kind of don't fully, or at least in my experience, you don't fully immerse in anything unless you've explained it. And that's part of the levels of processing effect and how we learn. We learn by explaining to others what the heck it is that we have learned or think that we've learned. Anyway, that's another sign that you might need a memory expert, and I would encourage anybody. I mean, it's so sad that Buzan has gone to the Great Memory Palace in the sky. Otherwise, I'd be telling you, go to a Think Buzan training. And I don't know what else is out there, except for that they're continuing to offer teaching in his absence, and I really don't know how that is going in his absence, but I'm sure it's very good. So you can still go to the Buzan organization to get some training on how to teach. But there's other people. You really just want to find the person that you gel with, and a variety ultimately at the end of the day, if you can get it. All right, so those are the 9 signs that you need a memory expert. I'm going to suggest some of my favorite memory experts for you coming up here. If you're just joining us, let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. If you have any comments, questions about anything, let me know in the chat. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. And one expert I suggest that you check out, because he's very, very good, very grounded in science, is Gary Small. So I don't know if he does any coaching or whatnot, but here's the thing. You don't necessarily have to have in-person contact to learn from experts. And you can listen to the interview that we have on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. The link to that on its YouTube version is in the description below. But go further than just the interview. Actually go and read his books, and they're phenomenal. And what I would request that you pay attention to is the scientific thinking behind it all, not just wanting memory to be what you want it to be, but working with what it really is and being able to meet the world halfway and not try to create all kinds of fantasies around it, but actually notice how it's better than the fantasy if you just deal with it as it is. So definitely check that out. Also, Barbara Oakley, wonderful teacher of memory accelerated learning how to learn, is a great program. The book is amazing. The book version is written for a younger audience, but it's great for adults as well. And I don't know if she offers any in-person help, but if you haven't gone through learning how to learn, then please do, because it's phenomenal, either the book or the course. And I don't know if it's still free, but the video course used to be free on Coursera. So check that out. Brad's Up, another favorite of mine. And one thing that I really love about Brad is he's really focused on, particular aspects of the skills, and he has some beautiful training just for memory and passwords and dealing with internet security. So one of the things you want to keep in mind when you're looking at memory experts is, what is their focus? What are their strengths? And that can help you decide whether they're the one to reach out to or read their books from. And so Brad has a very good focus. He's good across the board, but that's one thing that really stands out to me, and that he took such efforts to create a training for people just to deal with passwords and other aspects related to computers so that they could be more secure. It's just wonderful, wonderful. So make sure that you don't miss Brad's Up, and link to one. We have 2 interviews, one of which is linked in the description below. Now, for any of the wonderful memory experts who may be with us now or watching the replay, I apologize if I didn't mention you. There are so many out there, and you can always check out the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. Alex Mullen, John Graham, who I already mentioned, Tanzal Ali. There's so many people. Nelson Dellis. It's just more than we can list. And the important thing is to, again, think about what it is that they're focused on. Is that a skill that you want? And then follow up and actually read their things that they've created or take their courses. Dave Farrow's another one. Adolfo was telling me that he took Dave Farrow's course and picked up some new insights and strategies, which is great, which is exactly what will happen. If you continue to study, you will actually notice more because of your continuing to study. And then if you continue to implement what you extract from your studies, your practice will improve. But if it's just, I got through a little bit of that book, never actually did anything with it, and then you add the other one and the other one, chances are you actually are going to get less and less and less from these offerings. So it's very, very important to go all in on these things and actually complete them. And some examples of how that all works is also on the podcast. So Mike McKinley was recently on the podcast, and 66 Psalms he memorized. We talk about that. Great number for those of you who know your Bible. And I don't mean the number of the beast, but in any case, wonderful, wonderful discussion. A lot of people have been in touch letting me know that this really helped them. And so check that out. Link is down below. Also, Sunil Khatri jumps out at me. Again, I haven't got every Magnetic Memory Method student who's been on the podcast in today's presentation, and that's not because their stories aren't extraordinary, but just for the sake of time and to encourage some of you to go and look through the back catalog. But Sunil really jumps out at me because it's a multi-year story, and he did some extraordinary things like memorizing an entire speech in Korean, and then winding up learning Japanese and going to Japan. And it's been a story where the focus on mastering one approach, and obviously knows other memory teachings and so forth, but really sticking to the one thing led to greater career options and experiences. And just imagine going and memorizing a speech in Korean, and there's video of him giving it on the street from memory. It's just incredible. So there's actually 2 episodes with him, and the most recent is linked down below. Also, Nicholas Castle, I really love this because it's a raw story. He had PTSD, and memory training was a means of helping deal with that and get some healing around a particular issue, which resonates with my own story of finding solace in memory training from the dark jaws of depression. So check that out. Also, I always love when young people are rocking and rolling. So Marno Herrmann with his 1,200 digits of pi. Oh, man, amazing. And you hear him recite it on the podcast, and it takes him like less than a minute, I think. He's just like, blah, 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 blah. Unbelievable. Quite something. So check that episode out if you missed it. And also, Christian Fitzharris inspires me so much, especially with his Brain Games rap that I was able to collaborate with a little bit on, and did produce the video along with Ali. So a lot of people have had fun with that. We're going to talk about how to get the most from a memory expert. But before we do that, let's take a break and listen to Brain Games, and I'll be right back.
Let the games begin!
I define, establish, exercise, and practice. Externalize spatial maps as I attack the path of mature learner. Bottle burner, max memory reserve, and earnest. I'm a furnace, an anomaly, sibling of Simonides known to reduce cognitive load. And oh, how I rotate, juggling space, making a case for brain games so digital amnesia leaves you. Digital dementia is censured. Did y'all tag Herrenium on your mind wall? Review, recall, we will evolve. Brain games, synapses flashing, mind palace crashing with brain games. Info encoded, mental high roller. Brain games, synapses flashing, mind palace crashing with the brain games. Info encoded, mental high roller. This is not a game you can afford to lose.
Why?
Brain games, don't need an app for that. I just attack with the path of a lab rat. I mean scientist, I'm an annihilist, finalist, illuminist, numinous, doing this, proving this, who is this scholar? Dopamine fiend, clean sheen like the Pleiades, enemies, illities, killing with abilities, rolling with affinity, rolling with McKinley. Brain games, healthy snacks, build a palace, pick some facts, learn to balance while you rap, unleash talents, don't look back. Brain games, synapses flashing, mind palace crashing with the brain games. Info encoded, mental high roller. Brain games, synapses flashing, mind palace crashing with the brain game. Info encoded, mental high roller. Scholar.
MagneticMemoryMethod.com. All right, I always love that. Christian is a genius with his rapping, and thanks always to Ali for helping me with that video. All right, so let's talk about how to get the most from a memory expert. Nicholas is in the house, says thank you, excellent as always. Well, thank you, Nicholas. Appreciate hearing from you today. If you're just joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Share this channel around. That helps me continue helping you if you care about this tradition and this particular approach to the teaching. That's what's going to help it grow and continue, and help me continue helping you. Every little short and small contribution helps. All right. Now, if you're going to get the most out of a memory expert, you got to be serious and you got to be strategic as a lifelong student. So one of the things that you can do is be prepared in advance to get the most out of any time that you're spending, whether it was the book or a course or an actual session with a person or going to an event, etc. And know what you want out of it. Have a strategy. We have a live stream all about creating a vision statement for your memory training. So that's the kind of way that you can be prepared, and you will milk so much more value out of everything that you do in memory training. But see it as the strategy for life. It's not quick fix solutions, although it can be. It certainly can be. But that's not really what the emphasis should be on. This should be something that you engage in for life. Because again, mastery is doing something that other people won't, so you can spend the rest of your life living in the ways that other people can't, right? Very, very important. So that's how you're going to get the most out of anything that you do. And that means reading books from beginning to end, taking courses from beginning to end, doing what those things say. Even if you think you've done it before, just do it again. It's good to go through the motions, and you'll see it from a different perspective. You'll be surprised sometimes just by what you pick up by doing it again, even if you think that you're already good at it. You don't know what you don't know. Very, very important. And along those lines, be prepared with proper questions. What do I mean by proper questions? Well, if you haven't written about 250 to 500 words to help answer your own question on your own, then you really haven't arrived yet at what the question is that you have, almost certainly, because most questions in memory training are answered by exploring what it is you could do on your own. So there's nothing wrong with this. It's not to make anybody feel badly if their mind fills up with questions, but the answer is in the application, in following the steps. So as you write 250 to 500 words, you just constantly ask yourself, well, what is it that I'm not doing that is talked about here, and start to craft out what you could be doing before you say, well, how do I do X, right? Well, have I read the chapter on X? And if so, what did I understand there? Well, he was saying that what you need to do is get a memory palace, and then you need to memorize all of these figures from 00 to 99, but make sure that actually you don't have to memorize them because they're all based on stuff you already know. Well, I didn't do that, so maybe I'll go do that. If you keep doing that and you keep answering your own questions, then when you have real questions and you go to the memory experts and you share with them, look, this is what I tried to do on my own and so forth, they're going to be able to laser pinpoint what you might be able to do, and you'll get way more out of it. Way more out of it. And I've been on calls with people who are not prepared, right? And I've been on calls with people who are prepared. It's two different worlds. It's two different worlds. And the people who come prepared, they're the ones who walk away and they memorize hundreds of names off the stage just very shortly thereafter, because they actually come with having done some groundwork on their own, tried to solve their own problems on their own, and they are very, very clear about what the heck it is that they want out of the session, and they come with questions. They come with questions that are so laser targeted and technical and focused that they get the most out of the session, as we saw with Lee Escobar.
Hey everybody, so I'm here in the Atlanta airport. I was just thinking about how grateful and thankful I am for what Anthony did for me. I do seminars all across the country, usually have about 100 to 300 people every single weekend, and one of my biggest goals was to be able to memorize their names, and started studying some stuff and learning, and it wasn't connecting as fast as it needed to, and I just wasn't connecting the dots, and started doing some research online, and there I found Anthony. And Anthony, I just want to tell you thank you very much for all that you've done. Now, man, my memorization is through the roof. I've almost...
So he's almost reached this goal. I don't know where he is now. I haven't heard from him for a while. But the last time I heard from him, he was going to compete and preparing to compete because he'd done so much in terms of the accomplishment of what he was looking for, which was this really singular goal, to be able to memorize the names of the people in his audience and know where they were in the stage. He knew exactly what he wanted. He knew what he tried. He was able to describe what he tried, and I was able to zero in on exactly what needed to be done, and then boom, the outcome comes. Why? Because prepared with proper questions based on some self-analysis, some study, some knowledge of the tradition that we're talking about. So basically, the point is you can get a lot out of a memory expert if you're prepared, and then the switch that you're looking for can happen because that person, that expert, is enabled to help you in a laser targeted fashion. Now, there's nothing wrong with, the other reasons that we talked about today, and if you're not there, if you have some of those other reasons for getting help from a memory expert, but you got to kind of call a spade a spade. So is it that you really need encouragement, you need coaching, you need some structure and plan for how you're going to cover the knowledge and then put it into practice? Or is it that you have the knowledge, you basically understand what's going on, you've done some practice on your own, but the gears aren't clicking because of some technical reason? Those are sort of two different things. So I'm not so much the guy to cheerlead and rah rah rah. We do that on the on this channel all the time, just because I love to talk about memory techniques and see and hear from all of you, like Adolfo and David today with his Arabic update and so forth. There's no end of inspiration out there. You can get all kinds of inspiration, but sometimes that works as well on these live streams, in sessions. But at the end of the day, my joy is working with people who really, really want to zoom and figuring out why they can't do that and then fixing it, because there is a fix, as Adolfo says here, the mechanic in his super chat. And that's my joy, my pleasure, is figuring out if that's what you want to do, why isn't it happening? So if you've got something that you want to do and you can't make it happen, we can figure it out. I'm 100% confident about it. However, in order to get the most out of it, you got to be willing to follow instructions. Even if those don't sound right to you, doesn't matter, because we need to find out. We need to find out what is happening, and we need to rule out certain strategies. But if you're not willing to follow instructions, then what's the point? What's the point? You can save yourself a lot of time. You can save the expert a lot of time. Some of those experts out there would never tell you what I'm saying right now. They'll just happily take your cash and go on their merry way. And that, I think, is quite false. The truth is that you need to try things to rule out what it is that you might need to be doing in order to train your brain, to train your memory, to get the results that you're looking for. It's very, very important to understand that and to be willing to do it, and to be willing to do it thoroughly and consistently in order to be able to rule it out. And it saddens me a lot when I hear from people who say, well, I tried this and so told me to do that, and I didn't. Well, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. And likewise, you got to also take this with a grain of salt and caution, because some people will give you instructions that don't make any sense. Like, for example, they will instruct you to take supplements, and that can never make sense so far in my research, and it shouldn't be necessary, because so far in my research, and I stand to be corrected, and I'm looking for the correction. I've got some supplements over there that I tried just to see what would happen. None of them so far that I've seen do anything better than a 0.02 verbal memory advantage, which basically is the same you can get from drinking water. So if people are selling you pond scum or whatever they do, just run. They don't have your best interest in mind. What they have is profit in mind. And there's nothing wrong with profit. I mean, it's a free market. I'm all for people doing business and so forth. But when it comes to memory, which is the most precious thing that we have, memory is really what you are. You got to be a little bit cautious about supplements, because there's so much bankrupt woo-woo weird science, and a lot of people, and you don't hear this enough, but one of the reasons why they have back-end offers with supplements and so forth is because they're spending so much on ads to get you to buy their stuff that if they don't have those back-end offers, they can't possibly be profitable. So, whistleblower, but it's a sad thing indeed, and it makes me want to puke every time I see it. As taking pond scum supplements should make you puke, because it's probably highly toxic. And so many of those supplements, they are filled with chalk, powdery, weird stuff that who knows where it comes from. So be careful. And the other problem is that a lot of people are already on all kinds of other supplements. So they might be taking vitamin B, let's just say, and then they're going to be recommended another supplement that's going to jack up the levels of vitamin B or vitamin A or vitamin C or vitamin this, that, or the other thing. And that's going to potentially make them very ill. So before anybody does any supplementation, seriously consider looking at your diet as it is, getting some medical help. This is not medical advice. Go get medical help, and ask about things like rotation diets and elimination diets to help you figure out what it might be that is interrupting or creating problems in your brain, that if you just got rid of that, your memory would be automatically better. It's very, very, very important, because you could make yourself sick by some of these supplements. I see them all the time. Look, hardly a week goes by when someone doesn't ask me if I will help them sell their memory supplements on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, on this YouTube channel, etc. The answer is always 100% no, until such a time comes when there's not only better science, but there's better anecdotal evidence where people are doing something extraordinary because they're taking these supplements. And I don't think it's going to happen. I just really can't see it, because everybody knows, right? It's the old Leonard Cohen song. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. And they still are suckered. And it's not a criticism of anybody, because I get suckered by it too at an emotional level when I watch some of this stuff, because they're hitting you on these emotional levels, and we all want certainty. We want this feeling of transformation, right? But these are dangerous, these supplements, and almost certainly brain fog and mental clarity and sharpness are more directly, thoroughly, and safely created by removing, not adding, stuff from your diet. Okay? But don't take that as medical advice. Go get it checked by a medical professional. It's very, very important. And in terms of following instructions, when they say, well, make memory palaces this way and then make your magnetic imagery this way, then you want to follow those instructions. But just, be cautious about the strange supplement stories that people give out there. All right, let's check in with the chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Nicholas says, thank you. Excellent as always. I share your stuff often with many and probably always will. Good, sir. Great, great. You are from between Chicago and Milwaukee. Love your insight, and congrats on such fulfilled and successful students. This is not accidental that I'm seeing and hearing this wonderful wisdom. Love your authenticity and not being afraid to touch on these important subjects. Well, thank you, thank you. And sorry to be all like a teacher's pet, but this is such good content. Well, thank you, Nicholas. And trust me, I didn't have a thought in my head about anybody being a teacher's pet, because I don't know why I didn't. But in any case, all the praise in the world is what it is. But what we want is for you to actually go out and learn better, and then do something for others with what you've done. And so, talk. I appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. I really, really appreciate it. All the kind words are great. But what really is kind is when you go out, you improve your memory, and then you direct what you now have in your head in the form of knowledge to helping others. That's what matters. That's what matters. All right. So Golem is in the house. Thank you for being here, Golem. Please no, sir. Anthony is just fine. And if you must use some special terminology, you can call me doctor, because I can't stand mister. And I have a doctorate, so it works. All right. So Nicholas says he's starting to improve himself and help others indeed. Great. If there is a secret, that's the secret. Do things to improve yourself so that you might help others. All right. Golem says, I can't remember the Memory Palace images. Okay, so what are you doing to create them? Let me know in the chat and let's rock and roll. Now, the next way to get the most out of a memory expert is to be willing to experiment. And this is sort of a repetition of what we've already covered, but I think it's a very important thing to separate in its own category, because in order to actually get the most out of any memory training, you want to follow the steps as closely as possible, but understand that it is always an experiment. Every time you pick up any information to memorize, it is an experiment. It is what am I going to do to memorize this information? What magnetic imagery am I going to create to memorize this information? And what's going to serve here the best? And what might I need to do later to fix whatever didn't work? And you just go in with complete openness to the process, no judgment, no need for a particular outcome. You're just gathering data. You're producing data. So you've got your memory palaces, you got your information, you've done a bit of organization for how it's going to go, what you're going to do, and so forth. And then you just start to encode. Now there's some things, best practices in what is encountered, what I mean by just start to encode. But at the end of the day, you get some information and then you're going to memorize it, and you let go of any particular need, and then you track what it is that you're doing. And then later, when you recall, you go, wow, I got that correct. And instead of congratulating yourself, congratulate yourself, you got it. Awesome. But you also want to say, why? Why did that work? And then if you made a mistake, instead of, calling yourself bad names or whatever, you just say, why? And then you think, and then you strategize, and you grow in your practice, and you figure it out. You compound, or you use some of the other tools to make it work. You treat it as a laboratory experiment. Very, very important. All right, Golem, can I use a memory palace more than one time? You can indeed. Notice, Golem, that you're skipping from the first question to another question before we've sufficiently addressed the first one. This is, I don't know if this is the case, but it is something that a lot of people do. They never complete the first issue before they're moving on to the next one. You can, if you want, reuse memory palaces. Look up the definitive guide to reusing a memory palace here on the channel, and you'll get some tips about doing that if that you must. But it seems like there's a bigger issue at hand that you originally addressed. All right. So the next thing I would suggest is that you combine, if you can, books, courses, live events, maybe if you're interested in competition. I'd say go to a competition even if you're not interested, just to see what happens. That's what I wound up doing, and it was worth it. And then coaching. If you can combine all of these things together, if you're very serious about this, that's the way to get the most out of it. But whatever you do, you want to go all the way through with things. Read the book from beginning to end. Do what it says. Take the course from beginning to end. Do what it says. Go to the live event and do what it says. There's the 80-20 rule that seems to govern everything, and it's very easy to fall into the doing like this small little percentage out of the book instead of doing everything. If you really want to grow, shout out to Mark Shannon, you get the memory workbook. Whether you think that you're going to enjoy it or not, you go through it. Not one thing, but everything, right? And you make sure that you understand it through action. Action, action, action. Not, that's an interesting idea. The workbook doesn't do the work. You do the work. So it's very, very important to do that. Because as we began, mastery is spending a small part of your life like most people won't, so you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. Wouldn't that be cool? Well, don't turn it into an ego trip, but it's just the way that it works. If you put in the effort, you will get the results. It's just that simple. So Golem, I don't know if you heard me, but no sir, please. I'm not a sir. Nicholas says, first and foremost, Master Golem, think and believe you can remember the Memory Palace images. Yeah, Nicholas, I don't know if you need to think or believe. I'm not sure that that's the direction to go. Thinking that you can do it, etc., maybe that has a place in other realms. Here, you don't need to believe in it. You need to do. You need to actually follow the steps. It's precisely the opposite. There's no need to believe in this because there's all the evidence in the world that your brain is the same as every other brain under the sun, more or less, and that the rules that govern the memory in everybody else's brain. So instead of doing the airy-fairy, new agey, just believe, just do it. Just do it. Because it's the same fundamental things that everybody who has done this has done. You get past this need to tell stories in your mind through application. This is super, super important. This is the problem with so much of training out there, is it's confusing activity with accomplishment. They're so happy to sit there in their memory training or their personal development training and do the belief exercises and the stories and tapping into all this narrative and all this sort of stuff, instead of getting it down to brass tacks and doing. Here's what needs to be done. Here's how to do it. Do or do not. There is no try. And your beliefs aren't going to help you here, right? You have to have confidence. You have to believe in yourself. But even then, this will work even if you don't believe in yourself. You just have to do it. It's so simple. It's so simple. It's so simple. You make it too complex. The thing that I would suggest instead is go and make the vision statement that we talked about on a previous live stream. That's not about belief in anything. It's about weeding out the BS stories that people tell themselves about what they want, stress testing so that you are focused on what you really want. And as I shared with you with Lee's story earlier today, you have done some due diligence on your own and you come up to a barrier or a block that's legitimate that you can't solve on your own. And then without needing to believe, you say, this person makes sense, and you invest in what they have to say. Excuse me. And you do what they say, right? So you can play the belief games and all that until you're blue in the face if you want, but that's not the most direct path. The direct path is letting go of the need to believe. Just follow the evidence. And there's so much evidence here. All right. So let's see here. Nicholas says, I hear you and agree. All right. Well, even agreement is not necessary. True agreement is in the doing. And so, again, it's not what people say. It's what they do. Very, very important. And I don't want to put too fine of a point on it, but so much of the problems in the self-development world is on encouraging people to confuse activity with accomplishment. Let's sit and have a time together to believe in ourselves. Yeah, that might feel good. But that's how the evil Dr. Forget gets you every time. Oh, and he loves to have you in stasis. Never forget that the memory training world is filled with people who are competent competitors. They don't necessarily tell you what it is they really do in competition, because that would make you their competitor. And so that's why so much of that stuff is all too happy to pander with the belief and then some of them, not all of them, but some of them will have some pond scum to send you as memory supplements at the end. it's just not, it's not the way that it works. All right, so Nicholas says, getting down to brass tacks, it's simple, but it's not so easy without the nuggets you're sharing today with a person like you to say how it is. Good points. Okay, thank you, Nicholas. David says, after all is said and done, more is said than done. That's right. And I may be guilty of it too, but I hope that all of this activity that we're doing now is leading to accomplishment and bigger and better accomplishments than before. But we need all those other people. I mean, well, whether we need them or not, I don't know. They're here. So that's the way the world is. And whatever. So it is. We just want to call a spade a spade. We all know. Everybody knows Leonard Cohen, right? Okay, so Golem, let's catch up here. But we want to test that you're listening, because if I see Sir again, I'm not going to believe that you are listening to the plot. Let me see. Give an example of scientific name remembering. Give me a scientific name. Not sure what scientific name remembering means. When you say that you try to imagine vividly, but that doesn't happen, imagine what? What are you doing when you imagine something vividly? I suggest you go through this again, this replay, and learn what we talked about in terms of formulating questions so that you can answer your own questions. But it's so far not much that I can answer because there's so much vague material in what it is that you're doing. And an example won't help you. I can tell you what I would do for however you say this, Copsicus solaris. It's just simple. RoboCop, he's saying he's got a sycamore, like a whip from a sycamore tree, whipping the U.S. flag. Saul from the Bible is in the Solaris movie. There you go. Now, how do you get there? How do you get there where you can just come up with imagery that fast, provided that was particularly fast? You train. You develop your lists, and then you use your lists in everyday application. It's that simple. I didn't see a single image in my head as such because I don't need to imagine vividly. Imagining vividly takes too much time. You will need to do it as you train yourself and think about what vivid means to you. What is it that's happening in your head? Because people put a picture in their head of what's happening in other people's heads instead of worrying about what's happening in their own, instead of analyzing what's happening in their own. And then they say, well, I can't get a vivid image. Well, I say nonsense. What would you need a vivid image for? What you need is what works. And to get there, what you need to do is you need to learn the skills, the techniques, and then you need to practice them. So you study these techniques, you implement what you learn from what you study, and then you practice with the information. And then you can look at that, and then you'll just have RoboCop with a sycamore branch with the U.S. flag and whatever I said there, Saul from the Bible on the Solaris spaceship. Maybe George Clooney is in there. Maybe it's the Tarkovsky Solaris. I don't know. It's up to you. You've got to come up with your own mental Lego. The more that you come up with your own mental Lego, the faster the images will come. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But you got to train. All right. Hope that helps you out. Nicholas says good morning to Ignatius. Ignatius, I say good morning to you too in China. Ni hao. Ni chirlama. Teaching English. All right. Wonderful. All right. So Golem says, I think of a good image, but when I place them on a memory palace, then I forget. So what do you consider a good image? What makes the image so good? If you forget it, it ain't good. Sorry. But it's good if you remember it. So if you think of a good image, it wouldn't be. So for example, Saul on either the George Clooney, what is it, Steven Soderbergh, who made the George Clooney version of Solaris versus the Tarkovsky version. If I can't come back with that, it's not a good image. It might have been fast there, right? But if I can remember RoboCop with the sycamore branch at the U.S. flag, then it's good, right? And sort of come back to that. Then good is, can you remember it? So I don't think that you get to call it a good image if you forget it. It's not how it works. It's got to be that you remember it. Then it's a good image. Simple mechanics, simple math. So think about what you need to do in order to make sure that you have truly good imagery. And you know what? Good isn't the right way to think about it. It's not good or bad. It's whether it's magnetic. What does magnetic mean? It means not only that it comes back, but that it's the information you need to memorize in the first place, and that it helps repel the information that you don't need. So this is the self-analysis stuff that we talk about. You need to weed out how you're talking about this to yourself. If you call it a good image and then it doesn't work, well, why did you call it a good image? Think differently. Learn to create magnetic imagery. Golem says, thank you, sir. Still not listening. Oh, so funny. So here's the thing. When you want to train for good image making, you got to find somebody who can create good images themselves, and then you invest in whatever way it is that they train. So spend some time over on this channel if you like, and go through it. Go into the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. We talk all about the necessary magnetic modes for solid image creation. And again, we don't care about whether it's good or bad. We care about whether it works. It's not a good or bad thing. It's jenseits nach gut und böse, if you know what I mean, which means far beyond good and evil. So it's got to work. It's got to work. Ignatius comes roaring in with a weird question. Said, I don't believe in weird questions. I just believe in the questions that come in. All questions are good. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And if you have questions, pop them in. Ignatius says, I'm constantly stressed out by my country's political situation. How can I eliminate this and move on with my memory work? Good question. These are the kinds of questions that perhaps matter above all. So look at the language you're using. How can I eliminate this? You can't eliminate countries. You can't eliminate political situations. So why even try? Let it go. Let it go. Now, that's easier said than done, of course. But the reality is, if you can't change it, why are you stressed out about it? Right? So the first step is just to acknowledge that it's just there, and you can't do anything about it unless you want to get involved, unless you want to become a politician, right? Or heaven forbid, whatever else that people do. But the most direct path is to study political history, study philosophy, study economics, study law, and then go and get yourself a position in the government, and then make change from within by being part of that system. Otherwise, what are you doing worrying about it? Put it aside. Now, again, I know that's easier said than done. So what do? Relax. Can't do anything about it. Acknowledge that you're probably not going to do something about it, because you're probably not going to go to law school. You're probably not going to become a political scientist. You're probably not going to, go and stage some elaborate campaign so that you get voted into office so that you might make a change. You're not going to write books that are going to influence political thinkers. You're not going to become an economist and start an economics blog that leads to a YouTube channel that influences people all over the world, right? Are you? Well, if you are, get busy and still stop worrying about things you can't change, but at least rest assured that you're actually doing something about what you're worried about. Otherwise, let it go. Relax. And instead, focus on what you can do something with, right? And daily meditate, relax yourself, and focus on what you can do something about, and consistently do stuff that moves you towards a positive direction. It's really, really that simple. I think it's that simple. Maybe it's more complicated than that. Let me know if it's more complicated than that. I don't know. But it doesn't seem that much more complicated. And look, it took me a while to get that sorted myself, because I started in political science, and there's obviously some things that are not optimal in the world. But I got out of political science and went into English literature, and then later into media philosophy and film studies and history of language and history of religion and history of science and all the stuff that I did in my PhD, because I saw that those were ways that I could enable myself to actually do something that would positively impact the world Whereas if I went into politics, I would probably just be part of the problem that I was trying to solve. So I let all that stuff go and focus on a different area. And things are so much better. And then I just memorize some stuff that helps me calm down. So what you might want to consider, Ignatius, is memorizing something that will help you relax. And one of the things that I would recommend is Happiness Beyond Thought. Happiness Beyond Thought is by Gary Weber. It includes the Upadesa Shram, which says Karturajnya Praputephalam Karma Kimparam Karma Tajidam Kriti Mahorado Patana Karanam Phalamashashvatam Gati Nirodhakam Ishvarapatam Nechaya Kritam Chitta Shodhakam Mukti Sadhakam. What that all means, when you translate it into English from the Sanskrit, is the world is governed by laws, rules, forces, gravity, the ocean, all that stuff, right? You don't control any of it. So what the heck are you doing worrying about it, right? And it also says that because the world is governed by rules, you are forced to take action. So hunger is somehow wrapped up in all the rules that govern reality, and it will cause you to seek food. Even if you psychologically don't want to eat, hunger will cause you to act in certain ways. The economic forces that govern the world will cause you to get a job, even if you don't want one, etc. We are forced to act. And it says there that all of the action comes out of this vast ocean and it returns back into the vast ocean, right? And you will be forced to play this game. Now, some people call it karma, whatever. It doesn't matter. The reality is that there are laws that govern the world and it forces us to act. And the quality of our action really comes from us just letting go. And then what it says there is that what you might do, and we already talked about this today, is you might structure things in such a way that you improve yourself in order to enable yourself to improve others, right? But there's an important component to that. You let go of the outcome and you do it just to do it without worrying about you getting anything in return. This is called karma yoga. Karma yoga is serving the world with no expectation of return. This is very, very important because when you serve the world with no expectation of return, you free yourself from suffering. Expectation is the quickest path to suffering. So if you just show up and serve, expecting nothing in return, then you don't have to suffer when you don't get it. Because a lot of the time, you won't. It's so easy. It's so easy. So what helped me understand that was not reading it and going, oh yeah, that sounds right, but memorizing it and saying it again and again and just training myself to let go of the need to have an outcome. It's beautiful. It seems to be working for years and years now. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. So that, I memorized a lot more Sanskrit than that. We're pushing now 75 or 80 verses, and they're all basically the same thing looked at from a different angle, and they just allow you to be free of the tyranny of your mind trying to control outcomes that are produced by laws that you have no control over. So it's very, very easy. It's fun. Give it a try. Read Happiness Beyond Thought. It's amazing. And then read the sequel, Evolving Beyond Thought, because then it's got some more stuff that you can memorize, like the 32 verses of the Ribhu Gita that he has there, which are, I've read the whole Ribhu Gita, but I think that those 32 verses are the ne plus ultra of they're awesome. They're awesome. All right, let's check in with the chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. If you have any questions, Stay Fit is here. Says, great work. Love from India. Namaste. Nicholas says, stop calling him sir unless you have to, because he keeps asking you to not call him that, but it don't really matter compared to what he's saying now. Yeah, look, I don't care. Call me sir if you like, but I just think that it's bizarre. I'm not knighted, okay? Sir is what you call someone who's been knighted. Doctor is what you call someone with a PhD. But you could just call me Anthony. That works too. All right. Nicholas says, wild hearing you speak different languages so well. Very cool, dude. Well, thank you, Nicholas. Back to the point. We want to hear you speaking languages well and having great conversations with other people, because that's one of the reasons to learn languages, right? Is to be able to serve them better, entertain them, and have fun with them, and entertain yourself along the way. But you become just a better servant to all of humanity when you can speak other languages. Golem says, I read a lot of memory books, Dominic O'Brien, Tony Buzan. I developed a PAO, but I can't use it well. Please tell me where am I lacking. So Golem, look up a video that we have on the channel here about using the Feynman technique and watch this live stream again so that you're able to ask the question a little bit better. I don't know where you're lacking because I don't know what you've done. I don't know what you've understood from the Dominic. I don't know what you've understood from Buzan. I don't know what exactly your PAO looks like. And if you want to know where you're lacking, you're going to need to do some better description, more thorough description than that. And if you follow the Feynman technique as I've described it, you will find the answers without needing to ask me because you will solve all the problems that you have. All right. So hope that helps you out. Ignatia says, thanks. Nicholas says, I'll be watching this again and taking amazing notes on all this gold. Excellent. Stay Fit says, so easily simplified karma yoga. Cheers. Cheers right back at you. Ignatia says, spent some time in Thailand and would watch their monks walk around. They seem to get it. Yeah, we never know who gets it and who doesn't. Some people talk. Some people walk. Some people talk their walk. Some people walk their talk, etc., etc., etc. All right. You know, I don't know. A lot of people, they do the spiritual thing and then they shave their head and they put on the robes. I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if that's really getting it. Michael Roach in the Diamond Cutter. Let me see if I have it. It's in here, but I don't think it's right here. In the Diamond Cutter, his spiritual teacher told him, he said, no. You're not going to do the shave your head thing and stay in the ashram for the rest of your life. You're going to go start a business in New York City and help the world by being part of it. I kind of like that. That's very, very, very powerful. All right. David says, call me anything but later for dinner. Indeed. Well, we'll keep calling you David then. Nicholas says, magnificent responses. Golem says, in our country, teachers are called sir. That's fantastic, Golem. We're not in your country. That's all I can say. I appreciate that, though. If that's what they call it, fair enough. But just remember, we're not in your country. We're in the now. We're in the now, and we're right here. All right, if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Remember that mastery over anything, memory or otherwise, is spending a small part of your life like most people won't, so you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. And some people need to apply some of that to the skill of asking questions. So Golem has some questions that are in the direction of awesome, but with some refinement, they will be truly awesome, and you'll probably answer your own questions by asking them with some more thorough detail. And to that end, I encourage you to make sure that you check out the work that I've done on extending the Feynman technique to its application in memory training so that you're actually able to answer your own questions, because you're the only one who can at the end of the day, unless that you are going to work with a memory expert. But as I hope to show you today, the way to get the most help out of a memory expert is to do the Feynman stuff before you even get there. Candle joining us from New York City. Excellent. Good to see you here. Whereabouts in New York? I used to live up in Washington Heights. Love New York. Lots of memory palaces there. Sublimation Eater. Wow, what a cool name. From Dallas, Texas, ready to map out some missing lettered memory palaces. Excellent, excellent. Good to hear. Yeah, you don't have to eat the elephant all at once. I recently did another Memory Palace network, and it was amazing and fun. And a couple times I was just like, I can't quite think of anything yet for that letter, and I just came back to it. There's so much to just getting it out on paper. The more that you let your hands do the work, the more your mind will flow. So if ever you get caught, get out some pen and paper and just absolutely allow movement to oil the gears. It's very, very useful and powerful. And all right, that's what we got for today. And coming up, there's going to be a video featuring this mind map, what it is, what it does. Hope you'll all watch it when it comes out. It will be part 3 of a 3-part video series on mind mapping for memory. Make sure you watch all 3 of them. Support them with your thumbs up and your comments and sharing them around. And we'll go deep into this special way of using mind mapping in combination with a memory palace. I think you're going to love it. And I want to thank everybody for being here today, for all the great questions and interaction. Always love that. Thank you for making it active, fun, interesting, and spontaneous, which is great. And if you're watching the replay, please hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world in the discussion below. And yeah, let's keep the discussion going. You can always come back to this page and find it, and whatever comes to your mind. Nicholas says he'll be watching all 3 with thumbs up and sharing in advance. Excellent, excellent. Maricela says, thanks, enjoy your day. You as well, Maricela. Thank you for being here. Always good to see you, and always great. And thanks again to Adolfo for the amazing super chat. Know that such contributions help in many, many ways to make this continue happening. Ideally, you get the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, and I find that it's the greatest thing for when people will just follow it from beginning to end and take action and get the results. Pat says, great one, off to school, but we'll re-listen soon. Thanks, Pat. Always good to see you. Thanks for saying hello. Stay Fitter says, the way you explain things is much better. Can you try to do some videos on Kundalini, yoga, meditation if possible? We'll do at least some of those things. Yoga is what we're doing right now, actually. But if you mean stretching and that kind of stuff, then yeah, sure. Right now what we're doing is karma yoga, very much so. And ideally it's a karma yoga that leads some of you to doing your karma yoga as well. Meditation, you can go and search on this channel and on my website for meditation. You'll see a number of things, and we certainly will be doing meditation in the future, because my next book, I'm going now through the 2nd developmental edit, and then I'll get it back to the editor, thanks to Amy. I don't know if she's watching this, but amazing what she was able to help with in terms of finding what the book is and how it's going to work. And, I don't know, hopefully it'll be out in January or so. There's still some technical things to be done there, but it's really coming along, and it's got instruction on meditation, and then there'll be some videos about that to supplement the book. But thank you for asking about that, Stay Fitter. It's a very strong interest of mine. I meditate every day, unbroken now for many years, and I hope that it continues to be unbroken. I don't know. I let go of the need to control the future, right? But there's something interesting about unbroken meditation, is that the ocean of calm just seems to get deeper and deeper and deeper. That's something that some of you might like to enjoy. So how do you do it? You meditate, and you put in the practice, and you don't stop. You don't stop. But thank you for that suggestion very much. Sublimation Eater says, that's what I did. Skip some letters and returning to them. I listed some, but realized I didn't remember them as well as I thought. I went back to them all earlier and will draw it now. Excellent, excellent. So that's a great strategy. Nothing wrong with going back to malls, etc., etc. And sometimes you just simplify them. You don't have to remember every single detail. The question is, what is it you want to memorize, and then you can. There's just an abundance of space in the world. No need to end. Well, sheshe ni, Maricela. Thank you for your Chinese there. And we're going to have another one of these sessions probably around this time next week, but I can't make that promise for sure. But more or less, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll see you then. Nicholas says, excited for it and terrific tips. Thank you, Nicholas, for all your participation today. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Come visit me at magneticmarymethod.com. And until we speak again, keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.